this head kick on Ian Garry. That was the biggest moment of this fight. When I tell you, other than that, all Makhachev did for 24 minutes was either be outstruck by Ian Garry on the feet, hold him against the cage with a body lock, and not advance position whatsoever. There's nothing else. There's nothing else to this guy's game. He fights like a at welterweight, man. I'll watch women's MMA title fights over an Islam Makhachev title fight right now. Boring as If Makhachev returns before the end of the year or January,
no shot.
Then give it to Carlos Prates. It's a fun fight. Prates does damage.
Carlos Prates, I feel in my heart of hearts it's going to be Carlos Prates. I feel that's the move. That's the guy who's been more active. That's the guy who has the higher quality wins. I feel like this is the...
Going back to Prates, I just think it's his swagger. It's his confidence. It's his size. He's got that kind of Alex Pereira rock into range and just generate scary.
I need a message for Islam Makhachev. I will knock you out, bro.
Islam won, but his next challenger is already becoming a serious debate. Carlos Prates believes he deserves the opportunity, but one analyst thinks there's only one fair way to settle it.
Even though Michael Morales weighed in for this fight, Carlos he's been kind of like pretty vocal about it, that he knows that he's next. If the UFC wants to make this right, Kamaru, hold on real quick. If the UFC wants to make this right, you have to make Carlos Prates fight Michael Morales #1 contender. That's one. That's one. You cannot pick one. But check this out. Check what I'm about to say. Now, still, stylistically, in particularly a guy like Prates, I do believe that the UFC is probably going to give him Carlos Prates because they like him. Bro, stylistically, that's a great matchup for Islam Makhachev. Notice what Ian Garry did to Prates.
And Carlos Prates isn't the only name creating noise. Michael Morales may actually be the more logical contender, but there's another former champion who could turn this into a completely different kind of fight.
Like, the reality is, at 170 pounds, the guy that's undefeated, I think it should probably be Michael Morales, dude, in reality. But from what the people do know from history that would make this a banger fight, it's still the Nigerian nightmare, Kamaru motherfucking Usman. The guy that could defend takedowns. The guy that's going to stay on his feet. The guy that's not gonna shy away from you, that's gonna press, that's gonna stay in there and actually fight you. But that's between you.
You try to glaze your boy. I appreciate you, my boy.
Think about it, dude. The 170 pounds, bro. Who's the fucking grappler in there, bro? Like, who?
That's because this welterweight division is no longer short on threats. Two fighters are standing out from the pack, but they bring very different problems for Islam.
Last year, I said, guys, I'm looking at, there's some good guys. There's really, really good guys coming up that are going to turn into killers. Good guys. I understand that. But right now, being honest with you, with all the styles that I see in the MMA mathematics, how it works out, I felt that, hey, listen, styles make fights. I'm telling you guys, I can get that done. And everyone's, oh, you don't deserve it. You this, you that. We're talking about the guys at the top of the landscape right now. Carlos Prates, obviously, you know, that's a guy that I think so highly of. He's one of my favorites right now to watch. I'm a fan of his. Morales also, Michael Morales is very, very good. I think he might be the most athletic one of those guys in that crop. Michael Morales, I think, might be the most athletic. I think he certainly is the biggest out of those guys.
Now the debate gets even more interesting. One contender has the bigger wins, the knockout power, and the momentum. So the question becomes simple. Is Carlos Prates already the fight to make?
I think you give Carlos Prates the fight. He's coming off 3 beautiful KOs, maybe even more, but the last 3 I saw, 3 beautiful KOs. So is Morales, but I think Prates' wins are a little bit bigger, better guys. I think you have Ian Garry versus Michael Morales. Ian's not super hurt. That's a hard fight. That's a tough fight to throw him in there after throwing him in there against Islam. But Ian Garry's the type of dude that will take that fight. Ian versus Morales, Carlos versus Islam. I'm calling Sugar Sean Shelby right now.
Sean and MMA Guru believe Carlos Prates could be a nightmare for Islam. And their biggest concern isn't just his knockout power. it's what he could do from range.
This is another absolute goated win to have on his resume.
Yeah.
So I just love to have that ultimate number one contender fight again. But if Makhachev returns before the end of the year or January,
no shot.
Then give it to Carlos Prates. It's a fun fight. Prates does damage. Makhachev weirdly does mark up a lot from not a lot of punishment. Like even in the clinch if Ian Garry's hurting you in the clinch, Prates is going to be doing insane damage if he catches you at range.
But Carlos Prates isn't waiting for anyone. He has one stashed for Islam Makhachev, and it couldn't be more direct.
But for Makhachev, he said he wants to fight before Ramadan, so he's thinking January.
That makes sense.
I saw Morales and Prates in the crowd at this event, and they were kind of like chummy with each other, like laughing and
really
like chucking some zingers back and forth at each other in the crowd. There used to be a way of figuring this shit out, and that would be if Morales and Prates fought each other in a fight night main event with an open crowd and the people. I think that would be an amazing title elimination bout. It would hype up the winner versus Makhachev even more, because we know we're going to be waiting some time for Makhachev.
I need a message for Islam Makhachev.
I will knock you out, bro. I will knock you out. I will bring that belt to Brazil. The first welterweight champ from Brazil.
And Islam Makhachev has already revealed something that could change the entire timeline. He doesn't want a long break. He wants to fight again before Ramadan.
Bro, we have to fight before Ramadan, 100%.
Before Ramadan, okay. So you're shooting for January.
Of course. January, end of the year, I have to fight.
Maybe even the end of this year.
Yeah, because I'm not like 20-somethings. I'm 34 years old, and I have to fight soon as possible because I'm not cut much weight. I don't have like any big injuries, just have to maybe double check my nose. That's it.
Thank you.
Islam Makhachev knows exactly how dangerous this division is. He names 3 fighters who are pushing him to train even harder, and all 3 want his belt.
I don't know who I want to choose, no matter who is them. Maybe let them fight. Why they not fight in this card to see who is the number one contender, But it's okay. I am happy we have some real contenders in this division. And these guys, Morales, Prates, Shavkat, they make me like training every day more hard. But because I see this is the real fighters who can give me good fights.
But Ariel Helwani sees another reason Carlos Prates could get the shot. The UFC may care about one thing beyond rankings: who can sell the fight.
Prates, I feel in my heart of hearts it's going to be Carlos Prates. I feel like that's the move. That's the guy who's been more active. That's the guy who has the higher quality wins. I feel like this is the move. Carlos's last 3 wins: Jack Della TKO, Leon KO, Jeff Neal KO, and then the loss to Ian is in the 4th fight.
And Dan Hardy believes Islam Makhachev is facing a completely different physical challenge at welterweight. These opponents aren't just bigger, they're carrying far more size into the cage.
He was at 193 pounds like days before his weight cut. Michael Morales was.
But that's crazy, and it's not like he's got any excess weight on him. He's going to boil himself down and sweat that all out in liquid. Like Makhachev stepped up into a weight class where guys are, and I'm going to use these words very, very clearly, people are weighing in 15 pounds heavier. They're not 15 pounds heavier. Like, they've got more muscle mass, they've got bigger frame.
Dan Hardy also believes Islam's lightweight formula may need to evolve, especially if Carlos Prates is next. Holding him down could be a very different problem.
I think what he's already achieved as a fighter, regardless of what he's doing at welterweight, is, incredibly impressive. It's always been a pleasure to watch him. And the one thing I will say as well is, because it's such a big jump, like, you have to kind of accept that there's going to be a bit of an adaptation period. Like, I do think he's going to change the way that he approaches some of these guys, especially if he is going to be taking on the likes of Prates. Like, they're big, they're scrambly, they're difficult to hold down. I think we might see more evolution to his game if he sticks at welterweight. But, like, going back to something we talked about a little earlier, I don't really want to see people really struggling and forcing themselves into a weight class if they're not going to get the best performance.
Then Dan Hardy points to what makes Carlos Prates so dangerous. Size, confidence, range, and power that could make 25 minutes feel like a nightmare for Islam.
Going back to Prates, I just think it's his swagger. It's his confidence, it's his size, he's got that kind of Alex Pereira rock into range and just generate scary power. And I think that confidence and size and swagger over 25 minutes is exhausting for Makhachev to do.
John Onek takes that argument even further. Ian Garry gave Islam problems with technique, but Prates and Morales bring something Garry doesn't have: terrifying physical power.
Size matters in mixed martial arts. Maybe Ilia Topuria has some thoughts on that, right? Islam Makhachev measurably is smaller than these guys, right? Now, I think in terms of the grappling and the wrestling, it's going to be hard for Prates and Morales to defensively do what Machado Garry did in this fight, right? But offensively, those monsters are absolutely looking.
RJ Clifford explains the biggest difference. Islam may still have the grappling advantage, but against these bigger welterweights, one weapon could completely change the fight.
Neither one of those guys have the overall full mixed martial arts strategy like Ian Garry. Both those guys aren't as good against the cage as Ian Garry. So I think those all come into play. And it's like everything with mixed martial arts, but when you have that kind of power, everything shifts, right? It's that trump card in your back pocket, which Ian Garry doesn't have really, but Morales and all those other big striking welterweights do. So I think that power will cause a little bit of pause for a lot of people. And I think during fight week, a lot of highlight reels of Morales knocking people out and Prates knocking people out will get people thinking like, maybe plus 400's a steal with this guy. But good luck.
Even Israel Adesanya and Demetrius Johnson can't agree on who should face Islam next. Carlos has the hype, Morales has the streak, but only one can get the call first.
I think with Islam, he's got to fight. Well, it's not going to be
Morales.
Yeah, Carlos, or it's going to be Morales. And I'm not sure which one. I mean, he's probably going to take some time off for that, but it sounds like you're liking the Morales one.
Nah, I actually like the Carlos one better because, I think just stylistically and just the hype of it, but you cannot deny Morales' win streak. Like his win streak compared to Prates' win streak. So, I think they're gonna go with Morales, but unless something, and also he stepped into wait as a backup for this fight. So, it makes sense. But the UFC is gonna do what the UFC does, and what makes sense to them. If it makes sense, it makes sense. So,
But Demetrius Johnson sees a bigger picture. With so many elite contenders emerging, this could become a round-robin war, and Islam may eventually have to face all of them.
All gonna do the fucking treyway.
Yeah, the round robin. They're all gonna make their way to each other. Whether
they're gonna do it.
Yeah, whether it's Islam, and I'm actually shocked that like Islam was like, hey, before the fight, he was like, I'm still gonna continue to fight. So the fact that he got past Ian Garry, he has Carlos Prates, and he also has Makhachev Morales and a couple other guys. I think him taking time off, it'll be interesting to see what route the UFC goes, or if they're gonna have Carlos Prates and Makhachev Morales fight to see who is going to earn that number one contendership spot.
Because while everyone debates the opponent, Javier Mendez reveals something even more important. Islam Makhachev wants to return much sooner than many expected.
Kind of like a fastish turnaround for you guys.
I'm very happy about that, that's what he wants. That's what we should do. Let's hope the UFC can give us what he wants. But I'm looking. I was talking to Javi about that, and we talked about that's the potential that could happen is before.
And when it comes to the opponent, Javier Mendez sounds completely unfazed. Prates, Morales, or Shavkat, Islam's camp says they're ready for whoever the UFC puts in front of them.
Great, set it up and bring on the next one. We're expected to fight the best ones available. So if it's Prates, great. If it's Morales, great. If it's Shavkat, great. Bring them. I don't care. Islam is not going to care who he fights. Well, look, if we are pound for pound number one and we claim that, and which we do, we shouldn't be afraid of anybody. And Islam's not. So I don't think he cares who's next. If it's the number one guy the UFC picks, that's who we fight. So yeah, it's like you come, let's see what you can do. We'll prepare for you too, just like everybody else. And we have to respect every one of these fighters. Carlos Prates is an incredible fighter. But remember, Carlos Prates fought with Ian Garry, and how did that go? And if the UFC wants that to be our next opponent, I'm happy about it. That if it's Morales, I'm happy about that. And if it happens to be Shavkat, who's probably the most deserving out of all of them due to the injury, then I'm happy about that too. Look, we have to fight whoever they put in.
But Javier Mendez then reveals which fight he believes the UFC is leaning toward. And this time, it has less to do with rankings and more to do with the noise Carlos Prates is creating.
Yeah, and I think he's still coming back from that. So
okay, so he would be still out. So yeah, I would think it's probably between Morales and Prates, and I think because of the talking and the algorithm, the way the UFC does it, I would think they're probably leaning towards Prates. I would think. But who knows? You never know what happens behind the scenes, right? Maybe the management decides, no, this is not the right fight for us, or maybe we want more money, or maybe we want a different date. I mean, those things happen all the time. So it isn't something that you and I could control. It's what the UFC and the management of both fighters, can control. Then at the end of the day, it's up to the fighter to decide if what the manager puts in front of them is acceptable or not. So there's a lot of variables. That's why I hate saying, oh yeah, we're fighting. No, I don't know. The UFC announces it. Forget it. Don't try to trick me, because if the UFC doesn't announce it, it's not happening.
And Luke Thomas saw one major problem with giving the fight to Morales. Waiting too long could slow down his momentum.
A Carlos Prates fight only in the sense, like, I think that he's slightly more deserving. Michael Morales is a younger guy. He had that big showing, and it was a long time ago too, like in November against Brady. But like the problem is he's going to have to wait a long time. And if you're looking at kind of keeping things rolling, I think Morales should stay busy. I don't know if he'd want to, like, what is he, 26? I wouldn't want to wait that long, because what is Islam's timetable? This is a guy who fights, traditionally he's fighting like once a year, maybe twice if you're lucky. I don't know, like I was actually kind of like, in my mind, you start computing like when's Ramadan. Ramadan's happening like, I think February 7th to March 7th or something like that. It's in that month-long thing, and you're like, does he fight before then? If he fights before
he said
then,
he wanted to.
Okay. And I'm like, if he's able to do that, you can't lose on either one of these. I think that they're both slam dunk. Like, I love these fights. Like, the concept of him having to fight one of those dudes is...
But when the question became purely about fighting ability, Luke saw something different. He believed Islam could eventually control Carlos Prates on the ground. But Morales was another story.
I think Islam would have his way with Prates in the grappling, eventually anyway. And I don't know that that's true with Morales. But Morales has never really been pushed by a talent the level of Islam, and certainly, I don't think I don't think any of them are skill for skill as talented as Islam. The question is just, what does weight do to it? But again, he's up against it, dude. Like, is he really gonna, like, think about it, like, is he gonna slug it out with Prates? Probably not, right?
Right.
Is he gonna slug it out with a beast like Morales? Probably not. He's gonna do, to your point, Chuck, late stage GSP. He's gonna try and late stage GSP him. And I think when guys are up against it in terms of like what they, George was burned out by that point too. So I don't think Islam is burned out in that way, but like when they're up against the limits of like whatever they can reasonably contribute from like almost like a spiritual standpoint to a fight, and a physical limit as well.
And that led to a prediction that could completely change the division. Michael Morales might actually be Islam's toughest test.
I could see Morales being the guy. That's just my thought. He's big and he's young, he's explosive. I just think it's going to be that's a bad combination, What do you think?
I think Morales is the tougher fight. I think the Prates fight would be more entertaining.
Right.
Because I think Islam would be able to do more to him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I think Prates he's going to leave himself out there a little more, right? Like he's going to go after it. And that's good.
But before anyone could declare the next fight, Dana White stepped in with one warning. Don't jump to conclusions yet.
As he's been promised it, Morales was the backup.
Yeah, I know. He was telling me, I'm coming in there after the fight. I said, yeah. Just let Islam have his moment, and, we don't need you running in there with the whole fucking Muslim Brotherhood in here tonight. We don't need that shit. Let's just, let's pump the brakes and see.
Because Islam's victory over Ian Garry may have looked less dominant than expected, and Michael Bisping believed that could give both Prates and Morales confidence.
because you've got to be able to win fights on your worst night when your opponent's having their best night, right? And if you can do that for a long period, that makes you one of the best. And that's the pressure that comes with being a champion. That's why great champions like Georges St-Pierre started to lean on the wrestling style, because they feel the pressure of being the champion, the millions of dollars that are coming in through sponsorship, the massive paychecks that you get every single time you fight, and just the identity. You're the champion of the world. You're the dominant champion. He was the 4 times lightweight champ, or defended it 4 times, and then moved up to welterweight, and now he's won his first defense, right? So whether or not it was the most dominant thing you've ever seen, doesn't matter. It was clearly a victory. However, I'm sure Michael Morales or Carlos Prates were watching that and thinking, oh, I can beat this guy, right? That will make them very confident. However, do they have the same takedown defense that Ian Garry had? Probably not. Right? That's what those fights are going to come down to. Can they stop Islam's takedown?
But there was an important detail everyone had to remember. Ian Garry made Islam work. But could Carlos Prates or Michael Morales defend the takedown just as well?
Shit leading up to this fight, but we're buddies, we're fine, we're good. This isn't personal. Come on, let's touch gloves, we're all good. And then high-fiving at the end of the start of the 5th round. It's like, man, you've got Islam tired. You've got him tired. You're still fresh. He didn't look tired at all. The conditioning of Ian was phenomenal. Go after him. Dana said, you know, why not open with a flying knee or something like that? And I kind of agree. You know what I mean? It's like, go out there and look to put it on this guy. Never mind high-fiving him. Say, I'm going to kill you now. I'm coming for you this round. It's done. It's over. Your reign is over. But it wasn't. It wasn't to be. 5th round was close. I think it was 49-46 on all the judges' scorecards. Well, 2 out of 3 anyway. And I agree with that scorecard. Another win for Islam Makhachev. Not the most dominant or entertaining.
And despite all the criticism, Bisping still believed Islam had proven something that only great champions can prove.
And just because it wasn't the most dominant, just because he didn't get the finish, just because he didn't beat him black and blue, pillar to post throughout the entire 25 minutes, doesn't take away from it, right? Because you've got to be able to win fights on your worst night when your opponent's having their best night, right? And if you can do that for a long period, that makes you one of the best. And that's the pressure that comes with being a champion. That's why great...
But then the conversation took a shocking turn. Michael Morales was no longer being discussed as just another contender waiting for his opportunity. One analyst made a much bigger prediction. Morales could actually knock Islam Makhachev out. But why? What does Morales have that could give Islam such serious problems at welterweight? The answer comes down to his size, power, range, and the way his style could force Islam into a completely different kind of fight.
Dude, I was watching the fight and I couldn't help but think that Michael Morales knocks him out. I really do think so. I really do think so. Could Islam beat him? Of course. I'm not saying like it's a 10 out of 10, it's a given, but I've had this feeling, and I've told you this before. And some people always, you know, come at me because, oh, you're biased because you're just picking them because they're Hispanic or whatever. No. And my staff picks on MMA Junkie. I pick against Hispanic fighters all the time as well. I don't let that try to get in the way. But really, just looking at what's out there, and it's more of a styles makes fights. I'm not saying that Morales is the best in the weight class, but if my soul had to, or if I had to incarnate as somebody in that division, and to have the best chance at beating Islam Makhachev, I'm picking Morales. I think he's got the body type and the body size that's adequate to face somebody like Islam. And this Ian Garry fight proved that to me, like even more. Again, as I mentioned to you, the weight struggles that he had in dealing with Ian. And then on top of that, the power that Morales carries and people.
But then the conversation took a shocking turn. Michael Morales was no longer being discussed as just another contender waiting for his opportunity. One analyst made a much bigger prediction. Morales could actually knock Islam Makhachev out. But why? What does Morales have that could give Islam such serious problems at welterweight? The answer comes down to his size, power, range, and the way his style could force Islam into a completely different kind of fight.
Long legs. And that gives him a chance to catch Makhachev while standing and striking before Makhachev can get in range to catch him. Gives him a chance with the jab, gives him a chance with the straight right hand, set the table with the jab, you know, eat with the right hand, gives him a chance again with the kicks, gives him a chance to control the outside, gives him a chance to maybe walk Makhachev through a bad neighborhood and try to mug him. Makhachev don't get mugged, but a chance. That's all I'm looking.
And that brings us to the biggest question hanging over the welterweight division. Who should be next for Islam Makhachev? Carlos Prates has the activity, the knockout power, and the confidence to call Islam out directly. Michael Morales has the size, youth, explosiveness, and a style that some analysts believe could give Islam his toughest challenge yet. And then there's Shavkat Rakhmonov, another dangerous name waiting for his opportunity. But that's what makes this situation so unpredictable. Islam has already shown that he can move up, face a dangerous opponent, and still find a way to win. Yet at 170 pounds, the margin for error becomes smaller. These fighters are naturally bigger, stronger, and capable of ending a fight with one clean shot. So now the real question isn't whether Islam can compete at welterweight, it's whether anyone in this division can force him out of his comfort zone. Will the UFC choose the more entertaining matchup with Carlos Prates? Will Michael Morales get the opportunity to prove the analysts right, or will another contender suddenly enter the picture? One thing is certain, Islam's welterweight journey is only beginning, and his next opponent could reveal whether he truly belongs at the top of this division or whether 170 pounds finally has the fighter capable of stopping him.